Welcome to the Give and Go. My name's Tim, and today on 32 for 32, we're looking at the Arizona Cardinals, their 2017 NFL season, their 2018 offseason, and what they have to do this offseason. But before you do anything, go ahead, subscribe to our channel, share it with your friends, and follow us on Instagram at the Give and Go. So let's get started. For the 2017 NFL season, I gave the Arizona Cardinals a C. The season was marred with inconsistencies and injuries, starting with David Johnson earlier in the season with that wrist injury. They lost him early in the season, and he never returned, also for my fantasy team. They lost the number one running back and the most productive running back in the NFL the year prior, and it allowed defensive coordinators to key into Carson Palmer and other quarterbacks in the backfield. They traded for Adrian Peterson mid-season, but he wasn't the same as a pass-catching David Johnson, and therefore his ability was limited. Week 7 against the Rams, Carson Palmer unfortunately broke his arm and was out for the season, and that was the last game of his career. Let me just take a second and talk about Carson Palmer. He's a good quarterback in a generation of great quarterbacks. Look, he was the first pick out of USC in 2003 for the Cincinnati Bengals. He fought Cincinnati in contract negotiations, and he was eventually traded to the Oakland Raiders, who again traded him to the Arizona Cardinals. Had a late revival in his career, and it is good for him. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, one of the better men in the NFL, and I applaud him for such a long career. He ranks 12th all time in passing yards and touchdowns, and he played a total of 15 seasons, so good for him. The Cardinals had no longer than a 2-game winning or losing streak in the whole entire season, so they either won or lost every other game. That's impressively weird in my opinion. But they did beat some good teams though. They beat Seattle, knocking them out of the playoffs, and they also beat Jacksonville in a close battle 27-24 mid-season. One thing that was a major disappointment for this team was the draft class. It wasn't impressive whatsoever. They need to improve in year 2 with Budda Baker coming in strong, as well as other pieces on that rookie class. For the 2018 NFL season, Bruce Arians has retired, unfortunately. He was an offensive genius for that team, and he led an average offensive team in 2015 to the NFC Championship game, taking the world by storm. And I think that it is a good thing that he retired, but however, he will be sorely missed in the NFL. They hired Steve Wilks, the first-year defensive coordinator out of Carolina. He developed Josh Norman as a secondary coach in years prior, but he does blitz a lot for a secondary coach. He brought in journeyman offensive coordinator Mike McCoy to coach that offensive up, and Al Holcomb, the linebacking coach from Carolina. He helped one of the best linebacking corps in the NFL become elite with Luke Kuechly, Shaq Thompson, and Thomas Davis. Their offseason priorities: they need to find the quarterback of the future for that franchise. They have many options though. Look at free agents. They have Kirk Cousins, Teddy Bridgewater, Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, and AJ McCarron. They could also trade for Tyrod Taylor, or they could go out and draft a couple pieces like a Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, or even someone like a Mason Rudolph. I think the best option for them is to develop a franchise quarterback by drafting him. They have limited cap space, therefore they need to go out and draft someone. I think that they should pick up a quarterback like Sam Bradford to help develop someone like a Baker Mayfield in the draft, bench him for a year. I don't know how that always works, but hopefully Baker Mayfield or someone like that could learn behind someone like a Sam Bradford and become a year 2 starter. Secondly, they have to find a number 1 wide receiver to take over for Larry Fitzgerald. They have many options in free agency. Look, they have Allen Robinson, Sammy Watkins, and Marquise Lee. They could trade for Dez Bryant, which I don't think is the best option as he could become a locker room cancer, or they could draft someone like a Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, or Cortland Sutton. All those options are good, although this draft class, this free agency class, are pretty weak at the wide receiver position. Maybe calling some other teams up and looking for trades is a better idea. Honestly, besides the trade option, they should probably go draft a wide receiver to help Larry Fitzgerald teach him how to become a number 1 wide receiver in this league. Finally, they have to solidify this offensive line, which has been horrendous in the years past. Look, they have to release Mike Iupati. He had the worst year in the NFL this past year with the Arizona Cardinals. He carries a $9 million cap number, and they can save approximately $6 million if they cut him. It's time for him to go. Jared Veldheer, the right tackle, he needs to go as well. He's been consistently injured. He carries a $10 million cap number, and they can also save $7 million there. They can save a total of $13 million by cutting those 2 players alone. which will be great as they look to add other pieces. They also have to go after offensive linemen in free agency. You're looking at Andrew Norwell, the offensive guard from Carolina. Great year for him. I think it's time for him to move on as he will not get the money in Carolina he desires. Look, he knows Steve Wilks from Carolina. It will cost him about $12 million to sign him. I don't know if that's the best option for them, but that's definitely one option. They could also go after someone like a Josh Sitton, who was released from the Bears, or a Chris Hubbard. Also, the draft is full of offensive linemen. You're looking at Quentin Nelson, a top 5 pick. Maybe they could trade up there if they're not going after a quarterback or a wide receiver. Colton Miller, Orlando Brown, and Isaiah Wynn are also other options. Thanks for watching today, the Arizona Cardinals here on The Give and Go for 32 for 32. Join us tomorrow. We're going to be looking at the news from the NFL so far in the 2018 NFL offseason, looking at the trades, the transactions that have happened, and letting you know what other teams will be doing in the 2018 NFL season. Have a great rest of your day.